So, with Miss Marvel coming out, all of the enthusiastic press are talking about representation. They're like, oh, it's the first female Asian Muslim character ever on the big screen. We have progressed so much as a society. It's like the invention of penicillin, It's like a great leap forward for mankind. I'm curious if you ask one of these journalists who was the first black female superhero on the big screen. They probably don't know, but I'm willing to bet when Catwoman came out, they were like, oh, it was so good, such progress. But it's a progress that's easily forgotten, isn't it? It's not like the other things that you remember, like, for example, The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. No. This one is different. Now, I spoke in a previous video about why I find this so cringe, because representation isn't important, relatability is. Relatability brings us together as humans. It transcends race, it transcends gender, it transcends everything. If you're a human being, you can relate to a character. For example, if you have a movie about a guy growing up in an impoverished neighborhood, I found a lot of relatability with Luke Cage from the Marvel movie. So if you're a person that also grew up in a poor neighborhood, you might relate to a character that is going through some of the same difficulties that you did. There's other movies that talk about romance. So a guy which is trying to get the attention of a girl he likes, a lot of people can relate to that. So relatability is important, but I can also tell you why representation completely destroys movies, why it's so horrible and so bad. So in the case of representation, a character is not a character. It represents an entire race. It represents an entire gender. So when you have that character, any negative trait that the character has speaks on behalf of the writer. So, for example, the recent controversy with the Batman movie, which people from the press freaked the fuck out. Like, this was a tragedy for them. It shook their worldview. That the writer from Batman had an Asian character which was being chased by people who wanted to do him harm, and Batman rescued him, okay? For these people who think about representation, they thought that this is a dog whistle from the writers, that this movie is harming society, that the police should have bursted in to the room of the writers and stopping them from creating harm to society because it reinforces the negative stereotypes within American culture where Asian people are being harmed, right? So you have criminals, and this is in the vision of the journalists. Like, this is how they think. You need to understand, because they think a lot better than you. They're smarter. So they think that criminals are watching movies, and they see things in movies, and then they put them into action, right? So what it means is that your character cannot have any negative traits, because the moment it has a negative trait, it's a stereotype, and the writer is a racist. Why? Because the character represents an entire group of people, a demographic. And this is why you end up with a lot of characters that are Mary Sue's, that are absolutely perfect. They have almost no flaws. But because they have no flaws, because they are perfect, they can't have the hero journey. They can never lose. They can never be incompetent at anything. They are too unbelievable. They are good at everything. And because of that, they lack humanity, because human beings have negative traits. Any person that we know has flaws, negative aspects, as well as positive. Human beings are complex. But unfortunately, if you think about representation, you cannot write characters that are relatable. You cannot write characters that are human. And this is why the audience tunes out. Here's another example of a video game that we all loved when we were kids, if you're from my generation. Monkey Island. In Monkey Island, the main character is a guy by the name of Guybrush Threepwood. And he is the butt end of a lot of the jokes that happen within the game. And it's humorous, it's funny, and you connect to him. There is relatability to be had. When I played this game, I wasn't a macho man, a powerhouse. No, I was a weak kid who understood how it's like to like a girl and want to get her attention, just like Guybrush Threepwood did. And again, he was the underdog, so you related to him and you connected with the character. Now, if Guybrush Threepwood was a black woman, and she would have gone through every single hurdle that Guybrush Threepwood went, and she would have been the butt end of all jokes, and the same story would have been exactly there, but the main character would have been a black woman, then the progressives would flip their shit. Then their whole world would be in danger. They would view this game as an abomination. They would start moaning and whining and writing articles how Monkey Island is a sexist, racist game. Why? Because for them, it's not about relatability. It's a representation. Like, that character would represent all the black women in the world. And because of that, they would think that the writer must be sexist and evil and what have you. Because you see, when it's a white character, especially a white guy, they know that they can take it. White people are built of firmer stock according to the progressive worldview. But other characters are not, and you have to be very careful with how you write them. You have to be very careful in what situations and predicaments you put them in. And this is why, like, if you think about it, in TV shows, you will never see the drunk gay man that goes and beats his husband. Even though that would happen in real life, even though that it's a human trait, like some people do get drunk and domestic abuse is horrible and it happens, you would never have it in a movie. Why? Because representation. And you lock yourself out from very interesting stories. Like, for example, My Hero Academia has one of the most interesting superheroes that I have seen in recent writing history, that of Endeavor. Now, when you first hear about him in the anime, he is an absolute piece of shit. He's obsessed with becoming the #1 hero, and because of that, he wants to have the perfect son. So he is worried about genetics, like finding the correct match for him, not because of love, but a woman that's capable of giving his son the perfect abilities. He then becomes a domestic abuser. He doesn't show much love for his family, and because of that, his family grows very distant to him. His wife ends up in a mental asylum. His son hates him. And that's where the anime begins. Now, throughout the anime, he actually does become the #1 hero and then realizes that being #1 isn't important. What's important is giving your all in order to rescue other people. That's what a hero is supposed to do. He then tries to reconnect with his family. He works really hard, building that trust, trying his best in order to heal the wounds that he has caused. And it's a very wholesome story. It's a story of redemption. It shows that even though there are people who are evil in the world, there is that element of redemption that a person should be able to try and heal the past, something that doesn't even exist in Western culture anymore. If you look at Hollywood, if a person is evil, then they remain evil. Especially if it's a sin like being a sexist or a misogynist or a wife beater, there is absolutely no redemption for them. Like, the only solution is to completely cut them off from society so they die in a ditch somewhere away from our thoughts and minds. But this doesn't create an interesting story necessarily. This is not something that is worth being told. You know, this story of redemption that spans across several seasons, and you see how the character is trying, and people at first do not believe him or do not want to forgive him. And only after trying really hard and genuinely being honest about it, does he manage to have a change for the better. So, again, this is what relatability is like. Like, all of us have done something bad in our life and we regret it, and we would like to have the opportunity to change. Right? This is why you can relate with someone. But representability, like if this was a black person, you would never be able to get away with this story, because you'd have the progressives freaking out and saying, oh, so are you saying that black people are doing this and that and blah, 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 and the stereotypes, and you'd never hear the end of it. Like, they don't allow you to tell interesting stories. So this is why I think representation is very harmful for storytelling. You cannot tell good stories with political correctness and representation. And not to mention, to this day, I have not heard anyone recommend a movie to me because a Romanian is in it. It's like, go watch Breaking Bad because there's a Romanian in it, and you're going to love it. You're going to absolutely like it. There's this guy named Bogdan, And Bogdan has a car washing, and he's a Romanian like you, so you're going to be represented by that TV show. That never happens. No, people tell me, like, go watch Lord of the Rings because it's a cool fantasy. It's got orcs and elves. Go watch Harry Potter because they scream Wingardium Leviosa when they could have screamed Avacadabra instead. Because that's what get people to like movies. Representation isn't important. No one tells you go watch a movie because there's a Romanian in it. I guess like the only time is like go watch a movie because the girl in it has big tits. You know, like that would probably be the limit. Like the only exception. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.